So today we're going to be talking about the different ways that PPC agencies charge and how choosing the right way can affect your business. So broadly speaking, PPC agencies tend to charge in one of two ways. There are PPC agencies that charge a single fee which includes the click budget. Now, whilst this makes things simple for the client, they're just paying a single sum of money to the PPC agency. The PPC agency then pays for the clicks directly to Google. The problem with this is that the client doesn't have any transparency about how much of that budget they're paying the agency is actually being paid to Google for clicks. As an example, they might pay £2,000 to the PPC agency. The PPC agency says that they're going to spend 1,500 of that to Google on clicks. The client doesn't know whether that money was actually given to Google for clicks. So there's no transparency there. The second problem with that way, if there is ever a dispute between the PPC agency and the client, which does happen from time to time, Google would deem the owner of the account the person who actually pays the bill. In that situation, it would be the PPC agency. So the client would not be able to get ownership of the account that they've been paying for and all of the data that holds. So very important point. The second way that PPC agencies tend to charge is by separating the click budget. The client pays Google directly for the clicks and the PPC agency charges for their services. The two amounts of money are kept separate. A lot better transparency. The client owns the PPC account, the Google Ads account, because they're paying for clicks directly to Google, and they would have transparency over and ownership over that account. So a much more transparent and a fair way of doing that. Now, under that second way of arranging it, there's lots of different ways that agencies might choose to arrange their fee. A common one in the market is through a proportion of the client's click budget. So typically the agency would charge 5, 7, 10% of the client's click budget. In principle, that sounds quite good, but in reality, it's not always a very good way of doing it. The reason being, the amount of work involved in managing that PPC account is not really proportionate to the amount of money the client is spending. So for example, managing a Google Ads account that has a click spend of say £2,000 is generally speaking the same amount of work as managing that same account for £5,000 spend. It's not really that much more work in setting it up and optimizing it. So the agency therefore is always incentivized to get the client to increase their click budget, which may not always be in the best interests of the client. So a little bit of a conflict of interest there, in my opinion, in that model. The second way that agencies might charge underneath that second model would be by having a fixed fee, and that's generally speaking a lot better way of doing it. The agency is incentivized on results that they're generating through the account, and the client has a certainty, budget certainty on how much they're going to be paying to that agency. The thing to remember on that point is that most of the work in setting up and managing a PPC account is actually front-loaded. So you may find over time, once the campaign's bedded down and optimized, there's not a huge amount of work always in managing it. Sometimes that you just have to go in and tweaks here and there. But that's the downside to it, that an agency might absorb a lot of the workload up front, knowing that they're going to make a lot more of their profit down the road. So that's just something to be aware of. The third way in the second part is to charge on an hourly rate. So there are some PPC agencies that will let the client pay their click budget directly to Google, and they will charge an hourly rate for managing the Google Ads account. The con to that, the downside, is that the agency or the contractor is not incentivized to be efficient with their time, because obviously the more time they bill for, the more money they're going to get. So you may find them tinkering with an account, making changes that aren't really that necessary, and they're not going to bring any further return on investment for the client. So that's the different ways that PPC agencies model their services. You would have to choose which is the right one for you. One of the most important points, I believe, is to make sure that you don't get tied in for a long period with the agency or the freelancer. So make sure you do your due diligence, and yeah, those are the options. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to assist in any way. If you're interested in knowing about how we charge as an agency, get in touch and I'll be delighted to chat that through. Cheers.